The year is 1519. Waves crash against the hulls of a fleet of small Spanish ships as they approach the verdant shores of Mexico. The camera pans over a tense deck where rows of armored men grip their swords and horses neigh nervously in their wooden stalls. At the center stands a man, his piercing gaze fixed on the distant coastline, Hernán Cortés. He was a man of contradictions, part genius, part opportunist, part destroyer, part dreamer. Hernán Cortés was not born a legend, but he became one by the edge of the sword and the strength of his will. His story is one of impossible victories, fragile loyalties, and a deadly clash of worlds. This is the tale of the man who conquered an empire. Footsteps crunch on tropical sand as Cortés stands amidst his company, defiant under the blazing sun. Behind him, cannons are unloaded, along with crates of supplies, banners, and steel-clad soldiers assembling in ranks under his command. Hernán Cortés came into this world in 1485, born to a minor noble family in Spain. For a young man with no great means, ambition was his greatest weapon. After studying briefly at university, he set his sights on the New World, seeking adventure, gold, and glory. Though he quickly rose through the ranks under Governor Diego Velázquez in Cuba, Cortés was never content to serve others for long. In 1519, defying orders, he launched an expedition to the uncharted lands of Mexico. He set sail with 11 ships, a little over 600 men, and about 16 horses. In European terms, this was no army. It was barely more than a raiding party. What could such a small force hope to accomplish against the vast, unknown kingdoms ahead? Cortés, however, didn't see limits, only opportunities. Their capital, Tenochtitlan, was a marvel of the ancient world, a sprawling city of canals and towering pyramids built on an island in the middle of Lake Texcoco. Under the rule of Emperor Montezuma II, the empire was rich, fearsome, and held together by the sheer force of Aztec discipline and by the traditions of war and human sacrifice. For all their strength, however, the Aztecs had enemies in every direction. Many nearby tribes lived under the shadow of Tenochtitlan, forced to pay tribute and deliver captives for sacrifice to the Aztec gods. Cortés saw the Aztec system not just as a barrier, but as a crack waiting to be widened. Cortés wasn't just a soldier, he was a master manipulator. On his journey inland, he forged alliances with the Totonacs, the Tlaxcalans, and other tribes that sought freedom from Aztec domination. Promising liberation in exchange for loyalty, he amassed an army of native allies, one far larger than his own Spanish forces. Each step brought him closer to Tenochtitlan, and closer to destiny. At first, it seemed like a miracle. Montezuma welcomed Cortés and his foreign army, believing the Spaniard to be a manifestation of Quetzalcoatl, a god whose return had long been prophesied. Cortés and his men moved freely within the city, marveling at its treasures, its architecture, and its sheer genius. But Cortés did not come to marvel, he came to conquer. Tensions mounted as the Spanish took Montezuma hostage and began looting the city's wealth. Demands for gold turned into outright plunder, and what began as uneasy coexistence escalated into bloodshed. When the Aztecs rose against their conquerors, chaos erupted. The world that Cortés sought to conquer was now ablaze with resistance and strife. On June 30th, 1520, Cortés and his forces attempted to flee Tenochtitlan under the cover of darkness. But the Aztecs caught them in the act. The canals that had once mesmerized the Spaniards now became their graves. Harried by volleys of arrows, drowning beneath the weight of the gold they tried to carry. Cortés and his soldiers suffered devastating losses. Nearly half of his small force was killed that night. Some would have called it the end. But for Cortés, defeat was merely the beginning of a new strategy. After regrouping, Cortés returned. This time, he laid siege to the city. For 3 long months, Spanish cannons thundered, Aztec defenses faltered, and starvation and disease slowly took their toll. In August of 1521, Tenochtitlan, once the jewel of Mesoamerica, finally fell. The mighty Aztec Empire was no more. In its ruins, Cortés established New Spain, building his fortunes on the ashes of an ancient civilization. Hernán Cortés achieved the unthinkable. But at what cost? To his supporters, he was an unstoppable leader, reshaping the world in his image. To his detractors, he was a symbol of relentless greed and destruction, bringing suffering on an unimaginable scale. In the end, Cortés's conquest left us with more questions than answers. Was he a brilliant strategist, or a ruthless invader, a creator of a new world, or a destroyer of an old one? The legacy of Hernán Cortés remains one of history's greatest contradictions, etched forever into the lands he sought to claim.